Hi and welcome back to Classic MGB. Now, big news from us today. We've just got another MG and God forbid, it's electric and made in China. Yep, we have a dynamic red MG trophy. Now, before you fellow petrolheads click away in disgust, let me explain. I still have my beloved MGB-GT and my daily driver is still a Volvo V60. The MG4 is actually my wife's car and she absolutely loves it. I completely agree that the Chinese-owned MG bears little similarity to the British classics made in Abingdon and later at Longbridge, but let's just think about that for a little while. How many British marques actually still exist and how many are still in British ownership? JLR is owned by Indian company Tata, Lotus is owned by Geely, Mini is owned by BMW, and even Morgan, that archetypal British sports car company, is majority owned by a European private equity group. So, whatever car you buy these days, it's unlikely it'll be British. Then, thinking about the number of brands that just don't exist anymore: Alvis, Austin, Morris, Riley, Rover, Triumph, Wolseley. The list goes on and on, so isn't it a good thing that MG hasn't died with the rest, but's evolved into a modern car company that even has a design centre based in the UK? And what's more, judging by the reaction of the majority of the automotive press, they're now beginning to produce rather good cars. There will of course be many people that won't want to buy a Chinese car, just as many people initially shunned Japanese offerings in the 1970s. But look where that's ended up. Also, how many so-called European cars actually source a large proportion of their parts from Chinese manufacturers? Take a look around your house and see how many products are now made in China. It's quite likely that the device you're watching this video on was made in China. So, onto the MG4 and our reasons for getting it. Firstly, it's really cost-effective to run. We contract hire the car through our company, which attracts a benefit-in-kind cost of just £10 a month. For our viewers outside the UK, benefit-in-kind is a tax payable by anyone driving a company car based on the car's purchase cost and its emissions. In addition, some of the car's monthly cost is VAT, some of which can be reclaimed. As the purchase cost of the car is pretty low anyway for an electric car, then it all begins to make financial sense. If that isn't enough, let's move on to running costs. A standard petrol car of this size does say 40 or 50 miles to the gallon if you're lucky. So a 100-mile trip will use around 2 gallons or around 9 litres of fuel. At today's prices, that's about £13 for a journey or around 13 pence per mile. We have a home charger on an EV tariff called OVO Anytime that costs just 6.67 pence per kilowatt at any time of the day. A kilowatt will take the MG4 about 3.5 miles, so our 100-mile journey costs around £1.90 or 1.9p per mile. I reckon that's a pretty convincing argument in favour of any EV. My wife particularly loves it because she never needs to go to a petrol station, and I pay the electricity bill. Now, normally economical cars are pretty dull when it comes to performance, so let's examine how the MG4 performs. It's rear-wheel drive, has a 50-50 weight distribution, so the handling is surprisingly sporty. What's more, it accelerates from 0 to 60 in around 7.7 seconds. About the same as an MGB-GT V8, although the noise it makes isn't quite so exciting. Looking at the figures then, the electric car seems to work, but to paraphrase a quotation reportedly from Gucci, the quality is remembered long after the price is forgotten. It might be cost effective, but is it actually any good? Well, we'll be doing what might be seen as the most absurd comparison video soon, comparing the MG4 with my MGB-GT on the road. But for now, let's take a quick look inside the car. So here we are in the MG4, and I have to say, it's a big improvement on earlier Chinese MGs. It's very comfortable, it's well equipped, it's well built. I love the touch and feel of all the plastics. They feel kind of a long way from budget. There's loads of space in here as well, because of the flat battery along the bottom, along the floor of the car. It means there's plenty of space inside. There's no transmission tunnel, so it feels very spacious, even though the interior is quite dark. I love the driving position. I love the octagonal steering wheel, very stylish, and it feels very, very comfortable. There's a central screen that takes care of most functions like HVAC, car settings, and the audio system, which includes Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. The driver's display is shown on a second screen in front of the driver and includes useful features like traffic sign recognition, as well as real-time display of range and remaining charge. This high-spec trophy model includes sat-nav, 360 camera, heated seats and steering wheel, and an electric driver's seat as standard. So, overall, if you've had a look at earlier Chinese MGs and not thought much, it's worth taking another look. I think you'll be surprised. It's a really nice place to be. There are one or two provisos though. Electric cars aren't for everybody, and they won't suit everybody's use case. My wife does about 4,000 miles a year, mainly around town and shorter journeys of less than 20 miles, so range isn't an issue. Although the MG4's maximum range of about 250 miles is pretty reasonable. This does vary a bit depending on the temperature. You get less range in winter, and on how much you use the electrical features like the HVAC and the heated seats. It's also unlikely she'll ever use a public charger, so the issues around availability and the cost of those didn't really come into it. I'm guessing that the government's eco-promises will inevitably lead to more and more electric cars, and hopefully the infrastructure will be ramped up to meet the demand. I should probably add that we're not quite ready to go completely electric, and the aforementioned Volvo V60 takes care of longer journeys. For example, I could have taken the MG4 on a recent trip to the NEC for the Classic Restoration Show, but that would probably have needed a charge when parked. This induced some nervousness. What if there's no charger available? What if the charger's broken? What if the car doesn't charge properly? Now, in time, I'm sure these worries will ease. But not surprisingly, I took the Volvo that can be refilled virtually anywhere and has a range of about 600 miles anyway. So, would I swap my MGB-GT for an MG4? Absolutely not. I'd like to bet that most of us don't use our MGBs as daily drivers anyway, so the MG4 should be compared to what we drive on a daily basis. My MGB-GT only usually comes out for fun in reasonable weather, whilst the MG4 comes out when it's wet, salty, and all the other conditions that I wouldn't want to subject my pride and joy to. The MG4 is a mode of transport, but for those of us that love our MGBs, they're much more than that. An object of enjoyment and pure pleasure, well, most of the time anyway. So, if you're looking for a daily driver and an EV suits your lifestyle, you could do a lot worse than the MG4. While some will push back against the name MG being owned by SAIC and used on budget SUVs and other vehicles, I reckon it's great that the famous Octagon is still being used on cars in the 21st century, and with the upcoming launch of the Cyberster, then maybe some of the old values of the marque will be reawakened. So now when we go out, the only question I ask is, which MG are we taking today, darling? I know this is quite a controversial subject, but let us know what you think in the comments. If you've enjoyed this video, it'd be great if you give it a like, share it with anyone that could be interested, and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you click on the bell, you'll be notified whenever we upload a new video, which will be more MGB related than this one. So that's it. As always, thanks for watching and take care.